what's going on, everybody? Niger Chambers here from Big O Bell Media at the Royal Rumble 2024. The wrestling machine right next to me. Oh. But also just one of my favorite people, Chad Gable. Chad, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. That, absolutely. No coffee today?
I already slugged it, so you get the best version of me right now. I'm like 40 ounces deep, man.
Talking to the Creed brothers, who just really got to the main roster and just took the world by storm. For yourself, somebody obviously giving them their first big moment and big match, and just a person who's been around the business for a while here. What's been your reflection on them?
They're awesome, man. And they make the only thing I don't like about those dudes is they make me feel old because they're so young and athletic, but also they're like asking me for veteran advice and stuff all the time. So now I'm like, what happened here? When did I become the old guy? But no, dude, wrestling them in their debut on the main roster was awesome because it was like, for me, we get a little more freedom now. It's like match-wise, everything, a little creative freedom. We had some time, and I know how athletic they are, and their mentality is the same as mine, like, let's tear the house down. So I knew anything I mentioned or said to do, they'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So we're doing like these crazy, it's like me doing a moonsault after a springboard 450, and they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, thinking in my head, ooh, how far should we take this? Yeah. But man, it was great. Those guys are so good. What a future ahead of them. The only thing I have to tell them is like they're like me, like I used to be, where they're in such a rush. They want it now. They want it now. Guys, it's a long I mean, I'm over 10 years in now, which is crazy to say, but trying to convince them it's a long game. So play it right. Yeah, amazing. And I know wrestling fans and journalists, media, whatever, always like to do comparisons and whatnot, but I mean, without a doubt, when you think about what you and Jason did in NXT and in a short time on the main roster and looking at what they're doing, and it literally looks like you all paved that way for them. Was there ever a moment of people down at NXT and just the excitement knew they were just hot on your heels? Yeah, I mean, like, I would see the clips and stuff on Twitter or wherever of them doing this like freakishly athletic strength feats and things like that. I mean, stronger than anything I've ever done. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, there's something special about those guys. And then when I finally tuned in, I started watching them. There's something unique, and I told them this a long time ago when I saw them do a dark match. I think it was in Orlando. It was like, you guys have the benefit of the way you wrestle is intriguing because they just do things a little differently than a lot of people and what we see on our product. So just like little nuances that they took that just stem from their background from amateur wrestling, and I get it. It's like almost a flashback to like 90s WCW where certain guys would just wrestle in a certain way that I wanted to watch them every week, regardless of their character. Like their matches themselves stood out. So they have that going for them, and I've told them that. But in the same vein, I've told them, you guys don't make the mistake I did and like dwell on just your athleticism and your wrestling for the first 3, 4, 5 years of your career. Find your personality, spend some time reflecting on yourself, dig deep, and be uncomfortable, but find out who you are, guys, and let the people connect with that, whatever elements of that you think that they can. And it's hard. It's the hardest part of what we do. But I'm trying to instill on them early that like the sooner you do it, the better, and it'll resonate, and then everything gets real easy. And honestly, I mean, reflecting back to WCW, Dean Malenko name quickly jumped out to me like that, and obviously I see a lot of his career, his style, and in you. And then in these last few years, as you just mentioned, you got the wrestling down pat. You can have a classic with anybody. Then you added that blanket of charisma in, and now you're just truly a full circle WWE superstar. So, and then I'm guessing that's the philosophy you're teaching. Exactly. And I think I spent so long dwelling on like what am I going to do in my matches? What am I going to do in my matches? It's like, well, yeah, that's a big part of it, but like what you need to do first is have that connection with the audience. They don't care so much initially about what you're doing in your matches as who you are and how they can connect with you. And once you've got that, it's less about that and just them cheering. Like when I finally accepted that it's not about all the suplexes and all these moves I'm doing, it's more about me embracing maybe like my underdog side of me and the character that fights from underneath. People can get on board with that. They know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And so then it's less about the moves and it's more about the connection. And then that's really the art of what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's truly, every tag team name you've had, that's truly the American part of it, is that story of resilience or just reaching your goals and so on. And that's why you're one of my favorite people, man.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Now that the kids can truly tune in and see Dad be proud and love what he's doing, what's been sort of that acceptance back home?
Yeah, it's so great. You know, they all have their, as we all do, their own personalities. So my oldest daughter, who I think made herself famous by crying after the Gunther match, front row, she's a little more emotional, you know. She doesn't like it so much. And then I got my son, who's like obsessed with it, and I made him a singlet for WrestleMania a couple years ago, but that was a mistake. I'm kicking myself for it because now he wants a singlet every single time I get one, so I got to order like double. And he wears them around the house, and now he's wrestling and doing like amateur wrestling practice. And then I got my middle girl, who's like, she couldn't care less. She just wants the nachos at the show, you know, like give me some chips and cheese and a lemonade. So, but it's great, man. It's fun. They come along with me like, you know, once every couple of months on the road or come to a show, and that just makes my life, dude. I love when they're with me on the road because they get to watch me do what I do and spend time with them. It's the greatest. Yeah. Final question, or final two questions here. When you talk about you know, Otis and Maxine and Akira, it's a lot of funny stuff on screen. What are some of the funny moments that we don't see? Well, I mean, people would probably love to see the crap we give to Maxine about her lack of movie knowledge for Otis and I. I mean, it's absurd to us when we step back and realize how young she is compared to us. So we're like throwing out all these references from these classics that we love, that we've seen 100 times, and they just go woof over her head. And then we just have to get on her. Like Otis has given Maxine homework before, like to go watch Dazed and Confused, for example, and he gives her a whole quiz. I seen it on his phone, and he sent it to her. She reeled it out, watched the movie, wrote it back. She aced it, got all the questions right, to her credit. So we're trying to educate her in the ways of like a 90s kid. That's, you know, I'm proud of that, and all the classic movies and songs, but she's got a long way to go. She's more up in tune with like TikTok and stuff, which I don't really understand. Oh, millennial. Yeah, but there's some good stuff behind the scenes, man.
Sounds good. And it is a Royal Rumble weekend, so whether you reflect back in your previous times at the Rumble or just iconic moments within the world of WWE, when you say or think Royal Rumble, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Man, so I've been in enough of them now, not a ton, but I've been in some that have give you a chance to get in there with people that you normally wouldn't. Like, I was in there with Daniel Bryan and once in Saudi, which like stood out to me because he was always one of my heroes. And then you get there and you get to interact with other people as well. I was there when Titus did the famous poof underneath the ring, which is one of my favorite of all time. I love giving him crap about that. But that's the kind of stuff I love about Rumbles, man, is like you get stuff you wouldn't normally get, and you never know. So something gnarly is going to happen tomorrow. We know that. Yeah, I saw Titus try not to come into the press room today. He knew that's all he would get if he was coming in here. Titus, back to the scene of the crime there, sir, aren't you here? Anyway, Chad, I always appreciate you, man. Until the next time. Pleasure. Absolutely. You, yes, sir.